The duel in the Naboo power plant echoed with the sound of lightsabers clashing. Darth Maul, servant of the dark side, moved with a ferocity that few Jedis had witnessed. Qui-Gon Jinn and his Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi fought side by side, but the Sith warrior's power was devastating. With a precise and brutal strike, Maul pierced Qui-Gon with his double-bladed saber, and the Jedi Master fell at his apprentice's feet. Obi-Wan, consumed by rage and despair, charged at Maul with all his strength, but the Sith was too experienced. Within seconds, Maul disarmed the young Padawan and, with a spinning movement, eliminated Obi-Wan as well, leaving both Jedis fallen on the power plant floor. Anakin ran down to where the Jedi's bodies lay, his eyes filled with tears at the fate of those who had offered him hope. Padme Amidala arrived shortly after, placing her hand on the boy's shoulder as she observed the tragic scene. "They were good men," she whispered, feeling the weight of the loss. Anakin picked up Qui-Gon's lightsaber and held it firmly, feeling a deep connection with the weapon. "He said I would be a Jedi," Anakin murmured, his voice trembling. Padme hugged the boy, trying to comfort him while the royal guards organized the transport of the bodies. Days later, Anakin was taken to the Jedi Temple in Coruscant to be reintroduced to the Council. The circular room was filled with the Order's wisest masters, including Master Yoda, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and Ki-Adi-Mundi. The boy remained in the center, feeling the weight of their gazes upon him as the masters discussed his future. "Too old to begin training, he is," declared Yoda, his voice echoing through the hall. "Fear in him I sense, fear of loss. Dangerous, this is." Mace Windu agreed with a solemn nod. Qui-Gon saw something in this boy, but the Order's rules exist for a reason. We cannot make exceptions based on feelings. Plo Koon observed Anakin with his Anticon eyes and added, "The Force is strong in him, this is undeniable, but strength without discipline can lead to destruction." Anakin tried to argue, his desperate voice echoing through the council chamber. "Please, Jedi Masters, Qui-Gon believed in me. I can learn, I promise." His blue eyes shone with determination, but also with the fear of being rejected once more. Ki-Adi-Mundi slowly shook his head. "Qui-Gon's death was a tragedy, young Skywalker, but we cannot train someone out of compassion. The Jedi path requires that we begin early, when the mind is not yet formed." Yoda struck his staff on the floor, finalizing the discussion. "Decided it is. Accepted as Padawan you will not be. Sorry we are, but for your own good, this is." The words fell upon Anakin like a final sentence, destroying his dreams of becoming a Jedi Knight. He lowered his head, feeling the tears burn in his eyes, but refusing to let them fall before the Masters. When Anakin returned to where Padme waited outside the council chamber, she immediately noticed the result by the boy's dejected expression. She knelt before him and held his small hands in hers. "Anakin, I'm sorry for what happened," she said softly, her voice full of genuine compassion. "But this doesn't mean your worth has diminished. You saved my planet. You are brave and special." Anakin wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "But I wanted to be a Jedi, Padme. It was all I wanted." The Queen of Naboo thought for a moment, then smiled warmly at him. "What if you came with me to Naboo? You could have a good life there, study, grow up in peace. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" Anakin's eyes lit up slightly, but then he shook his head. "I can't leave my mother behind on Tatooine. She's still a slave." Padme didn't hesitate. "Then we'll bring your mother too, Anakin. I'll arrange everything." They returned to Tatooine, where Padme negotiated with Watto, the Toydarian owner of Shmi Skywalker. After some bargaining and the offer of a generous amount of credits, Watto finally agreed to sell Shmi. "You're taking my best worker," he grumbled, but eagerly took the credits. Anakin ran to hug his mother, tears of joy streaming down his face. "Mother, we're free. We're all going to Naboo." Shmi held her son's face, barely able to believe what was happening. "Oh, Ani, this is all I've ever wanted for you." Together, they boarded Padme's ship toward a new beginning on Naboo. Life on Naboo brought a peace that Anakin had never experienced. He and his mother received comfortable quarters within the royal palace itself, courtesy of now Senator Padme Amidala. The rooms were spacious, with large windows overlooking the lakes and green gardens that characterized Naboo's capital. Shmi could barely believe the change in their lives, from slaves on a desert planet to honored residents of a palace. Anakin spent his days exploring the palace grounds, studying with tutors that Padme had hired, and helping his mother whenever possible. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel the constant weight of slavery or uncertainty about the future. Padme became not just a benefactor, but a true friend to both. A few months after their arrival on Naboo, something extraordinary began to happen with Anakin. During his solitary meditations in the palace gardens, he began to perceive presences that others couldn't see. Luminous, translucent figures appeared before him, introducing themselves as Jedi Masters from past eras. The first was a tall man in long robes, who identified himself as Master Arca Jeth. "Do not be afraid, young Skywalker," the apparition said in a voice that seemed to echo from far away. "We have been sent by the Force to guide you." Another ghost, a serene-looking woman named Master Vima Sunrider, also appeared. "You have a great destiny, Anakin," she explained, "and we are here to help you achieve it." Anakin, initially frightened, soon realized that these presences meant no harm. Excited about his new companions, Anakin began to tell his mother and Padme about the friends who came to visit him. "Today, Master Arca taught me how to feel the Force in living things," he would say enthusiastically during dinner. Shmi smiled indulgently. "What a wonderful imagination you have, my son." Padme also found it charming. "Imaginary friends are common in children your age, Ani. There's nothing wrong with that." Anakin became frustrated because they didn't believe him. "But they're real. They teach me real things." However, both Shmi and Padme attributed this to the creativity of a child who had gone through traumatic experiences. What they didn't realize was that Anakin was, in fact, receiving genuine Jedi training, transmitted through the Force by masters who had transcended physical death. Everything changed when Qui-Gon Jinn appeared. Anakin was meditating near one of the garden fountains when he felt a familiar and powerful presence. He opened his eyes, and there was the Jedi who had believed in him, glowing with a soft blue light. "Master Qui-Gon," Anakin exclaimed, jumping to his feet. "You're really here." The Jedi's ghost smiled warmly. "Yes, Anakin. The Force allowed me to return to guide you." He approached, his ethereal form moving gracefully. "Tell me, do you still wish to become a Jedi?" Anakin nodded vigorously, his eyes shining with renewed hope. "More than anything, Master. It's all I've ever wanted." Qui-Gon placed a ghostly hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then that's why I'm here. The Force brought you to this place of peace and security for a specific reason. The Jedi Council couldn't see what I saw in you, Anakin," continued Qui-Gon, his voice deep and comforting. "But the Force has its own plans. You are the chosen one, the one destined to bring balance to the Force. Here, far from the restrictions and politics of the temple, you can be properly trained." Anakin felt his heart race with the possibility. "You're going to train me, Master?" Qui-Gon nodded. "I and others that the Force will send. But you must dedicate yourself completely, Anakin. The path will be difficult, and will require discipline and patience." Anakin bowed respectfully. "I promise I won't disappoint you, Master Qui-Gon. I'll dedicate myself with everything I have." And thus began the true training of Anakin Skywalker, not in the halls of the Jedi Temple, but in the tranquil gardens of Naboo, under the guidance of masters who had become one with the Force. The following years were filled with intense learning. Qui-Gon appeared regularly, teaching Anakin about the philosophies of the Force, lightsaber combat techniques, and the fundamental principles of a Jedi. Other ancient masters also came, each sharing their specific knowledge. Master Arca taught about leadership and justice. Master Vima instructed about telekinesis and deep connection with the living Force. Master Oru, an ancient Selegian, shared wisdom about the currents of the Force throughout the galaxy. Anakin absorbed everything like a sponge, practicing tirelessly during the day and meditating at night. His mother and Padme watched, impressed, as the boy developed abilities that seemed supernatural, although they still believed much of it was natural talent combined with fertile imagination. But then, something unexpected happened that would change everything forever. One day, during a particularly deep meditation, Anakin felt a presence different from all the others. It was darker, more intense, charged with a power that made the air around him practically vibrate. He opened his eyes and saw an imposing figure before him, wearing a mask and robes that combined elements of both Jedi and Sith. "Who are you?" Anakin asked, without fear but with caution. The figure bowed slightly. "I am the one who was once Darth Revan, a name that echoes through the centuries. I was both Jedi and Sith, and I walked both paths until I understood that true strength lies in mastering both." Anakin stood up, feeling that this encounter was crucial. Revan continued, "You will soon receive a visit from someone who could make your life change forever. You must be prepared for this encounter, young Skywalker." Anakin frowned. "Prepared how?" Revan extended his hand. "I am here to teach you about the dark side of the Force. You must master it, not be mastered by it. Only then will you be truly powerful enough to fulfill your destiny as the Chosen One." The years passed and Anakin grew not only in height, but in power and wisdom. Under Revan's tutelage, he delved deeply into the mysteries of the dark side, learning to channel emotions like anger and passion without being consumed by them. Revan was a demanding but effective teacher. "The dark side is not inherently evil, Anakin," the Spirit explained during their sessions. "It is the absence of control that leads to corruption. Master your emotions. Don't repress them as the Jedis teach, nor surrender to them as the Siths do." Anakin practiced techniques that no modern Jedi knew: Force lightning, drain life energy, advanced mental manipulation, and even the ability to completely hide his presence in the Force. At the same time, he maintained the lessons of Qui-Gon and the other luminous masters, creating a unique balance within himself. He was becoming something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia, a true balance between light and darkness. Growing up alongside his mother and Padme provided Anakin with something few Jedis possessed: deep emotional stability. As for Padme, she had become his best friend, advisor, and, eventually, something much deeper began to blossom between them. Padme, now a respected senator representing Naboo in the Galactic Senate, watched Anakin transform from boy to man with growing admiration. He was not only physically attractive, but possessed a magnetic presence and wisdom beyond his years. During long conversations on the palace balconies, they discussed philosophy, politics, and the mysteries of the Force. "You've become extraordinary, Ani," she said one night, as they watched Naboo's moons. "Not just in power, but in character." Anakin smiled, turning to face her. "Everything I am, I owe to you and my mother. You gave me something no Jedi training could: a home, a family, true love." It was at that moment he realized his feelings for Padme had evolved beyond friendship. She felt the same way, and under Naboo's stars, they shared their first kiss. The relationship between Anakin and Padme flourished naturally, without the conflicts that would have existed if he were a traditional Jedi bound to the Order's prohibitive code. They didn't need to hide their love. There was no shame or fear of discovery. Shmi blessed the union with tears of joy, happy to see her son find happiness. An intimate ceremony was held in the palace gardens, with only the closest present. Anakin, now a young man of 19, stood before Padme with his heart completely open. "You saved me, Padme," he said during the vows. "Not just from Tatooine, but you gave me a life I never imagined possible. I promise to spend each day being worthy of this gift." Padme held his hands, her eyes shining. "And you showed me that true love knows no limits or rules. We are two spirits who found each other through the Force." They became husband and wife, united not only by love, but by a shared destiny. It was shortly after the wedding that the visit prophesied by Revan finally arrived. An official communication from the Senate informed that Supreme Chancellor Palpatine wished to visit Naboo and, specifically, meet the remarkable young man about whom he had heard so many stories. When Palpatine arrived at the palace, accompanied by a small escort, his eyes immediately found Anakin among those present. The Chancellor stopped for a moment, and Anakin felt a wave in the Force, as if something primordial and ancient had recognized something equally powerful. Palpatine smiled broadly. "So this is young Skywalker. What a pleasure to finally meet you." He approached, extending his hand. "The Force is incredibly strong in you, my young man. Stronger than I've felt in any Jedi or—" He paused significantly, "in anyone else." Anakin shook the Chancellor's hand, his blue eyes intently studying the man before him. Through his training with Revan, he could feel the layers of deception that surrounded Palpatine, the deep darkness hidden beneath the facade of benevolent politician. But he showed no recognition, only smiled politely. "It's an honor, Chancellor. Padme has spoken much about your work in the Senate." Palpatine turned to the senator. "Ah, my dear Padme, you've hidden a treasure from me. This young man could be incredibly valuable to the Republic." In fact, he returned his attention to Anakin. "I would like to offer you a position as my personal protector and advisor. Your unique talents would be extremely useful in Coruscant." Padme intervened immediately. "We could be together in Coruscant, Ani. I spend half my time there anyway." Anakin nodded slowly, knowing deep down that this was the moment Revan had foreseen. The move to Coruscant marked a new phase in Anakin's life. He and Padme established residence in a luxurious apartment in the upper levels of the planet city, not far from the Senate and the Jedi Temple. Palpatine arranged for Anakin to be formally reintroduced to the Jedi Council, this time not as a Padawan candidate, but as the Chancellor's special representative. The council chamber was full when Anakin entered, now a grown man, his presence commanding immediate attention. Master Yoda, older but still sharp, observed intently. "The boy we rejected returned. He has. Very strong in the Force now, I sense." Mace Windu, recognizing Anakin from the previous attempt years ago, frowned. "Impressive. The power has grown exponentially. How is this possible without formal training?" Plo Koon and Ki-Adi-Mundi exchanged significant glances, both clearly surprised by what they sensed. Anakin bowed respectfully before the council. "Masters, I know our last meeting didn't end as I hoped when I was a child, but the ways of the Force are mysterious. I received training from other sources, and now I'm here serving the Chancellor and, through him, the Republic." Yoda tapped his staff gently. "Sources other? Explain, you can." Anakin chose his words carefully. "The Force guided me, Master Yoda. Through meditation and dedication, I learned what I needed to learn. Not following the traditional path, perhaps, but following the path that was right for me." Mace Windu remained skeptical. "The Chancellor brought you here to serve as his voice in the council, essentially. This is unusual." Palpatine, who had accompanied Anakin, intervened smoothly. "Jedi Masters, I simply thought that someone with such connection to the Force could serve as a bridge between civil government and your venerable order. Nothing more." The council members accepted the explanation, though with reservations. Living in Coruscant with Padme while working close to Palpatine allowed Anakin to observe the Chancellor closely. He noticed the small things. How Palpatine manipulated senators with flattery and veiled threats. How he orchestrated crises that consolidated his power. How his eyes gleamed with satisfaction when chaos spread through the galaxy. During private meetings, Palpatine occasionally dropped the mask, making comments about power and destiny that revealed more than intended. "The problem with the Jedis, my young friend," Palpatine said once, "is that they fear true power. They limit themselves with ancient dogmas and codes." Anakin just listened, absorbing every word, building a complete profile of the man who was, in fact, a Sith Lord hiding in plain sight. But he waited, as Revan had instructed him, for the right moment. Then the nightmares began. Night after night, Anakin woke up in cold sweat, visions of Padme in danger consuming his thoughts. He saw her scream, he saw her fall, he saw her die in horrible ways. The first time it happened, Padme held him, worried. "Ani, it was just a nightmare. I'm here, I'm fine." But Anakin knew these weren't ordinary nightmares. They were premonitions, echoes of possible futures floating through the Force. Fear began to settle in his heart, the same kind of fear that Yoda had detected in him as a child. He meditated frantically, trying to understand the meaning of the visions, but they only became more intense. It was during one of these anguished meditations that Revan appeared again, his presence firm and unwavering. "Remember what I taught you, Anakin," was all the spirit said before disappearing. Revan's words echoed in Anakin's mind like a clear bell cutting through the fog. He remembered the lessons about mastering the dark side, about using emotions without being enslaved by them. He realized he was doing exactly what Revan had warned him to avoid. He was letting fear control him. He was drowning in his emotions instead of channeling them. That night, Anakin entered a deep meditation like none before. He deliberately dove into his fears, faced them directly, allowed the darkness to completely envelop him. At the center of that abyss, he found clarity. The premonitions were not inevitabilities. They were warnings of possibilities created by his own emotional imbalance. The more he feared losing Padme, the more he created the energetic conditions for that loss. It was a self-fulfilling cycle that he was feeding with his anxiety. With this understanding, Anakin went even deeper in his meditation, using the techniques Revan had taught to explore the fabric of the Force around him. It was then that he saw something that made his blood run cold. A vision of Palpatine sitting on an imperial throne, the galaxy under his boots, Jedis being hunted and killed, freedom extinct. And there, beside the Emperor, was a dark figure in black armor, a servant of the dark side who carried the distorted essence of himself. Anakin understood immediately. This was the path Palpatine had planned for him. The Chancellor didn't want him as protector, but as apprentice, as weapon, as the executor of his tyrannical will. "That's why Revan came," Anakin murmured to himself. "That's why I was trained in both sides, not to serve evil, but to have the power necessary to face it and defeat it. As the Chosen One, it's my mission to defeat the Emperor before he ascends." Armed with this clarity of purpose, Anakin began to prepare. He practiced combat techniques tirelessly, meditated on the weaknesses of Siths that Revan had shared, and waited for the right opportunity. That opportunity came weeks later, when Palpatine called him to a private meeting in his Senate office. "Anakin, my young friend," Palpatine began, his voice smooth as velvet. "The time has come to reveal certain truths to you." Anakin remained calm, his expression neutral. Palpatine continued, "You've felt it, haven't you? The power within me? I am what the Jedis would call Sith, the last disciple of Darth Plagueis. And I can teach you powers you never imagined, powers to save those you love from death." It was the perfect bait, based on the nightmares that Palpatine had detected through the Force. But Anakin didn't bite. Instead, Anakin activated his lightsaber in a fluid motion, the blue blade glowing in the dimly lit office. "I know exactly who you are, Palpatine, or should I say Darth Sidious, and I know what you're planning for the galaxy." Palpatine's mask of benevolence fell instantly, revealing the twisted face of the Sith Lord beneath. "So you challenge me, fool? I have power beyond your comprehension." He drew his own red saber, and the two clashed in the center of the office. The duel was fierce, but Anakin had been trained by the greatest masters the Force had ever known. He anticipated every move of Palpatine's, countered every strike, pressed with a combination of light and dark techniques that confused the Sith Lord. With a precise spinning movement, Anakin disarmed Palpatine, sending the red saber flying through the window. Palpatine, now desperate, extended his hands and launched Force lightning at Anakin. But Anakin was prepared. He raised his own hands and launched his lightning, much more powerful, fueled by years of training in both sides of the Force. Anakin's lightning consumed Palpatine's, traveling back to their source. The Sith Lord screamed when his own technique hit him amplified. His body convulsed, smoke rising from his burned flesh. Anakin didn't waver, felt no pity. This was his duty as the Chosen One, to eliminate the evil that threatened to subjugate the galaxy. Palpatine fell to the floor, his body twisted and lifeless, his yellow eyes now opaque and dull. Anakin deactivated his saber and looked out over Coruscant, feeling a disturbance in the Force calm down. as if the galaxy itself sighed in relief. News of the Chancellor's death spread quickly, but it was Anakin's explanation to the Jedi Council that determined subsequent events. He confronted them in the council chamber, with Padme at his side as witness. Masters, Palpatine was Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord you sought. He orchestrated wars and crises to consolidate power. I confronted him, and he was defeated in combat. The council was shocked. Yoda leaned heavily on his staff. Deceived we were, for too long blind to darkness so close. But you, young Skywalker, saw what we could not. The chosen one you truly are. Mace Windu, who had been so skeptical, now looked at Anakin with new respect. The council gathered in private discussion, then called Anakin back. Windu spoke on behalf of all. Anakin Skywalker, the council recognizes that you fulfilled the prophecy. You brought balance to the Force by destroying the Sith Lord who threatened everything. Despite not having been trained in our temple, you demonstrated wisdom, courage, and power beyond what any of us imagined possible. He paused, and then a small smile crossed his usually severe face. We would like to offer you the rank of Jedi Master and a place on this council. He gestured to an empty chair. Sit down, young Skywalker. You have earned this place. Yoda nodded, his eyes shining with pride. Wise it would be, reject you we should not have. Correct that error now we must. Years passed since that fateful day. Anakin ascended through the Jedi ranks not by ambition, but by his natural leadership and deep wisdom. When Yoda finally chose to join the Force after 800 years of life, it was Anakin who was unanimously chosen as the new Grand Master of the Jedi Order. Under his leadership, the Order began to evolve, embracing more balanced notions about emotion and attachment, recognizing that totally repressing human feelings was as dangerous as embracing them without control. Meanwhile, Padme had ascended to the position of Supreme Chancellor, the first woman to occupy the position. Together, Anakin and Padme formed a powerful duo, the Force and politics working in harmony to guide the Republic to an era of true peace and prosperity. They had 2 children, Luke and Leia Skywalker. Luke and Leia grew up in a unique environment, raised both in the halls of political power and in the Jedi Temple. Luke, more contemplative and spiritually inclined, followed his father's footsteps on the Jedi path, eventually becoming one of the Order's most powerful knights. Leia, on the other hand, inherited her mother's political passion, but also demonstrated strong connection with the Force. She became a formidable diplomat, using both her sharp intelligence and her Force powers to negotiate peace treaties and resolve conflicts throughout the galaxy. When the time came for Anakin and Padme to consider retiring to live their lives together, far from Coruscant, it was natural for Luke to assume the mantle of Grand Master while Leia was elected Chancellor. The Skywalker family had become synonymous with hope, justice, and balance in the galaxy. Where before there could have been empire and tyranny, there was now freedom and prosperity. On the night of their official retirement, Anakin was in the Jedi Temple Gardens, looking at the stars. Padme joined him, her hand finding his naturally. Have you ever thought about what could have happened if you had been accepted as Padawan that day? She asked softly. Anakin smiled, squeezing her hand. Every day. But then I realized that each event, each choice, led me here. If I had been trained at the temple, perhaps I never would have developed the emotional stability that saved me. Perhaps I never would have learned about both sides of the Force so completely. And certainly, he turned to face her. I never would have married you. Padme smiled, her eyes shining. The Force works in mysterious ways. At that moment, Anakin felt familiar presences around him. He looked to the side and saw the Force ghosts of Qui-Gon, Revan, and all the others who had guided him. They nodded with approval, their work finally complete. Anakin had fulfilled his destiny not despite his unconventional journey, but because of it. He had brought true balance to the Force, and his lineage would continue to protect the galaxy for generations. The Chosen One had, finally, completed his mission.